Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And today we've got to talk about artificial intelligence because quite frankly, I think that anytime AI is used in anything, whether you're writing a news article, a movie, a video, whatever it is, I think it should always have to be disclosed that artificial intelligence was involved in the creation in some way, shape, or form. Now, fortunately, the FCC, or Federal Communications Commission, is actually about to do at least an aspect of that and give us notice when it's in use, because they've just recently proposed a new set of rules this past week that would require robocallers to disclose when they're using AI for phone calls and text messages. Now, this proposal builds on the FCC's ban of basically making AI-generated robocalls without the expressed prior consent of the person being called. So the agency now hopes that it would require callers to say while seeking that consent whether they plan to use AI for future calls and messages as well. And so similar disclosures would basically have to be added to any AI-generated phone calls, which the agency says, quote, contain an enhanced risk of fraud and other scams, end quote. If you recall, earlier this year, when President Biden was still running for president, there were robocalls across the state of New Hampshire just before their primary that sounded like the president telling everybody to stay home. And so obviously those are the kinds of things that they're talking about, but it could also be a criminal enterprise or just simply a business trying to solicit you. Now, the regulators suggest defining a quote-unquote AI-generated call as anyone, or any call rather, that uses technology to create, quote, an artificial or pre-recorded voice or a text using computational technology or other machine learning, including predictive algorithms and large language models, to process the natural language and produce voice or text content to communicate with a called party over an outbound telephone call. So, on top of this, the agency also hopes to carve out an exception for those with speech and hearing disabilities who may need to use AI-generated voice software to actually interact on phone calls or other methods of communication. And the FCC would also require that there would be no quote-unquote unsolicited advertisement in such calls, and that people on the receiving end of these phone calls would not also be charged for them as well. The agency is asking for specific comments, because they're in the comment periods, on whether scammers could abuse this exemption and how it could update its rules to basically prevent that. So if you can think of a way of getting around this, there you go. But I think overarchingly, this is a really good thing. We should be notified to say, hey, this is a solicitation for, some company, and you're talking to an artificial intelligence, or, this pre-recorded message was generated by AI. I think essentially, as we are blurring the lines of reality with misinformation and disinformation, and AI is a huge driver of that, requiring those kinds of notifications under penalty of fines or revocation of the ability to work or whatever that is as an entity, I think are, quite frankly, really good, because quite frankly, as we blur these lines, we start believing things we shouldn't, because quite frankly, the AI can tell us whatever it wants to, or the creators of the AI can have it make some pretty fantastical claims that quite frankly can't be honored. So big fan of this. I'd love to know your thoughts, but that is your quick news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, where you're only going to get me, no AI, any of the time. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.